Welcome to Hall County Connection. I'm Katie Crumley. You may have seen or heard about Hall County's latest social media campaign titled Back the Badge, where various individuals and or businesses showed their support of local public safety personnel with pictures on Facebook and Twitter. Well, today we're going a step further, taking the community behind those badges they're backing to find out what it takes and what it means to be a member of local law enforcement. To begin, here's Hall County Sheriff Sergeant Kelly Edwards to explain the training techniques and thorough process it takes to wear the badge. Sergeant Edwards, let's start at the beginning. If someone is interested in a career in law enforcement, what kind of questions do they need to ask themselves, and what do they need to think about before entering that career path?
Well, I would say one of the first ones is you need to ask yourself why you're wanting this job. Is it because you want to be out there helping people? You want to be a public servant? Do you like protecting people? Do you feel like that big brother or big sister that likes protecting people? Or is it because you've seen all of the Die Hard, Lethal Weapons, and Rush Hour movies, and you think that police work is going to be something like what you've seen on TV? It's very different. And another more important question is you need to be able to answer to yourself, am I willing to put my life in danger and sometimes on the line for a civilian or a victim that's a perfect stranger, and your fellow officers as well? That's a choice that we have to make a lot. Am I willing to put myself in harm's way to help somebody that I've never seen? Also with that, you have to ask yourself, can you be impartial? Last week's victim might be this week's offender, or last week's offender might be this week's victim. And, the officer that you're helping this week, last year you and him or her might not have gotten along, and, can you be impartial to past events and feelings and do what you have to do to help in the situation that you're presented with?
Now, once someone is hired, what's sort of the initial training that they go through? And I know that is something that you're heavily involved in order to become a law enforcement officer and wear that badge.
Well, it depends on what job you're hired for. If you're hired for patrol, then you have to have certain certifications to be put out there. But if you're just hired as somebody that's never been in it, you're getting into law enforcement, everybody that's hired always starts at a basic, and that's what we call new hire orientation. You go through, you get the chain of command, you get the agency structure, you get our purpose, you get sexual harassment, you get GCIC, which is our Crime Information Center. You get a whole list of classes and training, and that's for everybody that's hired. CPR, things like that. And then, if you were hired for a specific purpose, then, we make sure that your training is in line with that purpose. And if you need more training, we make sure you have it. And if you don't need more training, then we basically check off on it and say that you're ready for duty.
Now, I assume that kind of training isn't a one-time thing. Are there a certain number of certification hours that you have to meet per year or over the course of a year, or any kind of training that sort of is recurring in one way or another?
Yes, there are, we call them maintenance classes. It's use of force, it's sexual harassment, things along that, inmate transports, things like that are reoccurring, and we give them every year. And if somebody was to come in later half of the year and they don't have it for that year, we make sure that they have it. If we need to put on a class for them or a training session for them, then we'll put together a group of people that have been hired from say June to now, and then we'll put them all in there together and make sure that they have it.
It's nice to hear that people are being trained over and over again, and I think one sort of specific subject or topic perhaps that the public has taken an interest in recently because of the national headlines is gun training, and what it comes down to when it comes to officers being trained to use their firearms. Tell us about that type of training, because I don't think everyone realizes how comprehensive that actually is.
Well, there are several ways that we do firearms training. If you're a jailer, and you're wanting to go to the police academy and carry a firearm and be a deputy out on the street, or in the warrant division, or wherever you want to work, we have what's called an orientation class, and that is we bring you down, we show you the weapon, we teach you the functions of the weapon, how to take it apart, how to use it safely. Some people come and they've never held a gun before in their life. And a lot of people come, more than most, come with some type of knowledge of guns, whether it be deer rifles or shotguns or handguns from home or something like that. But that orientation class, we give you the basics. We start everybody in the class like they know nothing about guns, and we build them up to safe use of the guns, and they have to qualify. Another way is we do annual qualifications, spring and fall. One is a daytime and one is a nighttime. Some training classes, we use what's called simunitions, and it's kind of like a paint bullet. Me and you can shoot each other with it, and it won't hurt quite as bad as a real bullet. Mm-hmm. Won't do the damage either. But we use simunitions training, and that's how we can train what's called force on force. That means you can shoot me and I can shoot you. Then we can critique each other and say, here's a better way, let's not do that, or pick out mistakes in a training environment instead of in the real environment. And then we have classes, high-risk warrant classes, traffic stops, building clearing, anything like that that involves guns. And we do those both with live weapons and with those simunition weapons that I was explaining.
And I think that there would really be a twofold part to firearms training. There would be the part that would teach you how to use the gun, how to use it safely, how to be a good shot. But then there'd also be a separate part of the training that would be more of a critical thinking component that would be about when to use deadly force.
There is a classroom portion, and it goes over policy, it goes over Georgia law that covers use of force, it goes over authorized weapons by the department. It goes, it goes in depth on like you say, the thinking and the legal aspect of it, the repercussions for the wrong use of force, things like that. Anytime we do a firearms class, that is incorporated with that training. Our two qualifications classes, they both get use of force in the beginning of it. Then we go outside and do our weapons training.
Since that particular subject has been somewhat of a hot topic recently, what do you want our viewers to know about law enforcement officers and their use of handguns, firearms, their training when it comes to firearms that perhaps they don't know or maybe has been misconstrued in the media in one way or another?
Well, it's a vital tool. We have to have it to protect. The guns are on the street, so we have to have guns to go after those people. We're not training up to be the next military entity or anything. We're doing our training so we can be prepared to serve our people the way we need to serve them, protect them the way they need to be protected, and just be the public servant we're all supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Really, they are just a tool to protect the public at large. Sergeant Edwards, thank you so much for your service to the Gainesville-Hall County community and for your time here today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Once an officer completes his or her training and rises through the ranks to serve on patrol, they are then charged with providing first responder law enforcement service to Hall County citizens. Here's Lieutenant Chris Dale to talk about what these men and women do on a day-to-day basis. Lieutenant Dale, we're going behind the badge today to sort of give our viewers a glimpse into what goes on perhaps behind the scenes with law enforcement. And we're talking about patrol now, and that's something that you're very familiar with. What our viewers maybe do not know about patrol is that there's a very scientific breakdown to make sure that every inch of the county is being patrolled, at all times. There's a breakdown in precincts, divisions, shifts. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, ma'am. We have two different precincts that cover the county. We have a North Precinct, which is based in Claremont, and a South Precinct, which is based in Brazelton. And within those precincts, we have a different amount of officers, and they're broken up into 4 different zones right now. And each zone, depending on the time of day, like early mornings, we may not have as many officers, but as the day progresses and the call volume increases, we'll have more officers assigned to those areas to be prepared to handle whatever may come up. So there's a lot. They look at call volumes, that they pull the dispatch records and things like that and find out when the heaviest amount of calls are, and decide, when we're going to staff the county with more officers. And we also have special operations that work as well, that like traffic and crime suppression, that come in during different times and also help out with things like that and enforce more traffic laws and perhaps patrol highly areas that are high theft and that kind of thing.
That's good to know that there's a lot of thought goes behind to where people are placed and during what times of day. We hear the word patrol fairly frequently, but perhaps our viewers don't know exactly what that means. What are the responsibilities of someone that's on patrol?
In our patrol division, if you're assigned to the uniform division out of one of the precincts, you're a jack of all trades at any given time during the day. You'll handle calls for service, which may be a burglar alarm, maybe a burglary in progress. It could be someone needing a VIN verified on their trailer that they just bought, automobile accidents, custody disputes, that type of thing. So you really have to be on your toes and have to respond to different types of things. We handle, traffic hazards and vehicles that are broken down, that type of thing. So a lot of different types of activities that go on. If you're assigned to special ops like traffic, like I was talking about before, they may handle more traffic enforcement and different details like that in our crime suppression. They go to areas that we know that are having a little bit of a spike in different types of crimes and try to enforce laws and make contact with people in that area and try to keep that down.
Now, when people are out on patrol, of course, they may respond to a specific call, but they may just also be being observant and looking around to see what's going on. What types of things are people on patrol looking for in particular?
We do a lot of business checks, particularly at night when a lot of businesses are closed. We ride through, and once you're assigned to a zone or an area, you get to know what's going on in those areas. You know what cars belong at that gas station if it's closed, or what cars don't belong. And neighborhoods, we have officers that have worked the same neighborhoods for years and years and years. They know what types of cars and who belongs there and who doesn't belong there, and they're going to look at things that are out of place. And that's what we look for, is things are out of place, to try to curb any kind of activity and make contact with something that doesn't quite look right.
So maybe perhaps if you do see something that looks out of place, whether that's a person or a vehicle, and that person is to be stopped, what should a citizen do if they're stopped, whether it's on the side of the road because of perhaps a potential traffic violation, or someone on the street? What should a citizen know so that they can, I guess, cooperate fully with an officer and make sure that things go smoothly?
Just like you said, cooperate. We're not here to start something big. We may just be checking you out because we want to warn you about an equipment violation, or we saw you coming out of a house that we know the occupants are in that area. We want to make contact and see what's going on. So just cooperation. If you don't like what we're doing, if you disagree with, you weren't speeding, or for whatever reason we stopped you, the side of the road is not a place to have court. We have venues for that, but just cooperation. Don't make any sudden movements and that kind of thing. It's because we're here and we don't know who you are and what we're dealing with. So we're trying to protect ourselves and protect the community. So we just want to make contact with you and see what's going on. We're not here to hurt anybody. We just want to make sure everyone's safe and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And I like what you said about sometimes someone is being stopped so that they can be warned about a potential hazard or crime. It's not necessarily because they're being singled out because they think that they're a perpetrator. I think that's good to know. And that's something else that y'all are doing recently that I've heard about. I've heard that y'all are trying to warn the community about some traffic issues that Hall County has been having recently. In fact, I heard that 2015 was one of the deadliest years on the roads for Hall County in a long time. What can you tell us about that?
That is correct. We had, I think it was around 32 traffic-related deaths in Hall County last year, or this last year, 2015. That's a big increase. In 2014, we had 18 deaths, and it's been fairly low, and one is too many. But as far as history in the past probably 8 or 9 years, it's kind of been curbed. But last year we saw a spike.
What do you think the reason is for that?
I think a lot of it is some, gas prices have gone down. More and more people are on the road. I think technology is kind of sneaking up on folks, and people are getting more distracted. We have these distracted driving laws. Not everybody is going to go by those. So you're looking at somebody looking down at their TomTom or their cell phone or taking their eyes and looking at their kids or something like that, and they're getting distracted because a lot of them, if you look at the calls, they're crossing the center line. It's they lost control on the curb because they were going too fast, that type of thing. You know, a lot of distracted type driving.
And I have heard that that distracted type driving is not really focused on the teenage age group, which I think has been a demographic that has sort of been high risk in past years because of whether it's drunk driving or speeding. But this maybe has a whole new demographic that it's sort of taken hold of. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. The last year, the average age of the fatality victims was about 54, 55 years old, which, you know, in the past we've focused a lot of our time and attention on the younger drivers. We've got our fatal vision program through the advanced program, and we have teen driving education in the summertime, and we go to schools and we talk to them about that kind of stuff. But it's the older drivers that are kind of escaping those educational opportunities.
So what do you do about that, Lieutenant Dale? Does the Sheriff's Office have a plan for sort of curbing this distracted driving and also for this particular demographic?
Yes, ma'am. We're going to start going into more of the neighborhoods like Deaton Creek that are active, you know, retirement type communities, and speaking with the residents there, and as many as we can. There's a thing called CarFit, which is actually, we have deputies that are technicians, and we go into a place kind of like a car seat technician, but it's for older people, and we help them fit better into their car. We help them adjust their mirrors properly and keep off the steering wheel. You know, a lot of people you see right up on the steering wheel, that's hazardous. So we teach them to get back away from that and make sure they're using their seat belts. A lot of people, they get older and I don't want to do that. But unfortunately, we're having that's who's getting hurt in these crashes. So we're going to do a lot of that car fit stuff, and that's actually put on. It was developed by like AAA, the American Association on Aging, and the Occupational Therapy Association. So all that was helped develop that program to help people learn what their car, the safety benefits, and that type of thing.
Lieutenant Dale, thank you so much for your service to this county and for the information today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The training that officers receive and the work that they do in the field can be crucial to the pursuit of justice within the walls of the Hall County Courthouse. Kelly Robertson is with the Hall County District Attorney's Office, and she offered her thoughts recently on how integral these men and women in uniform are in the success of a case. Kelly, to start us off, tell us a little bit about the relationship between your office, the District Attorney's Office, and the Hall County Sheriff's Office.
The DA's office and the Sheriff's Office have a good, long-standing working relationship. We work hand in hand, prosecuting criminal cases. I think a handful of officers have my cell phone numbers and will call me on the side of the road if they have a question, a legal question, or a problem they want to work through. Likewise, I can pick up the phone if I need an officer in court and I haven't sent a subpoena, and say to those officers, can you help us out? Can you come in? I know it's your day off, and 9 times out of 10, they'll stop what they're doing and come help us. So we work well together. And I think at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, which is justice and the protection of the community.
Good. That's good to hear. And I think that's good for our viewers to hear as well, because oftentimes when we think of the courts and we think of the district attorney, we think of attorneys and judges and juries and a defendant, and that's usually it. But there are law enforcement officers that play a big role in the court system. What kind of services or information do they provide to you so that you can perform your daily work?
Well, really, law enforcement officers are providing the district attorney's office with the facts, all the evidence we need to prosecute criminal cases. It's very rare for a case to begin in the district attorney's office or the solicitor's office for us to generate a case from the beginning. Cases are beginning with the sheriff's office, with the police departments in our jurisdiction. So really, they do all the legwork. They are the boots on the ground, the eyes and ears, gathering all the evidence. Certainly, as cases progress, oftentimes investigators and officers do additional work to get cases ready for trial. Oftentimes, we go back and take additional photographs and do additional interviews. So, job doesn't end for them once they swear out a warrant. So it's a continuing process.
And I would assume that a lot of that information that they provide to you and to the other attorneys in the DA's office, that can really sometimes make or break a case depending on the quality of their work. We've talked a little bit about the training of police officers and sheriff's deputies and law enforcement in general earlier in this program. Can you speak to sort of the quality of the training that happens to local law enforcement as far as how it plays into your daily operations?
Well, obviously, the better training officers have, it's apparent in the work that we see. I have literally, watched officers grow over the last decade as far as starting out maybe just out of the academy, and the more training, they just get better and better over time. The more they do the job and the more training they receive. So that makes a big difference. We're so fortunate in this community to have a very well-trained professional group of law enforcement officers, and I think that plays out in the level and quality of the cases that we're able to prosecute in Hall County.
Good. I think that would make our citizens feel very secure in hearing. Now, Kelly, you're the only person that's being interviewed as part of the show that is not an employee of the Hall County Sheriff's Office, so you're sort of an outsider. From the outside perspective, looking in, what are your thoughts about the relationship between this community and local law enforcement?
I think we're very fortunate in Hall County that we do have such a good relationship between law enforcement and the community. There's a lot of community policing that goes on. The officers, from patrol officers all the way up to the sheriff and the chief, are out in our community. They're talking to people, they're listening, and I think that's apparent. We are just really fortunate, as I said, to have such a professional group of law enforcement officers who really are often the only thing standing between the citizens and people who might wish to do them harm. We really have good law enforcement officers out there laying their lives on the line to protect us, and we're fortunate in that regard.
You're right, and I think the community appreciates that. In fact, I think that was seen recently with the Back the Badge campaign that was launched on social media. Were you surprised that there was such positive support from the community for law enforcement through that initiative?
Not really. It's of course comforting, and I'm so happy to see that we do have good positive support from the community for our officers, but I wouldn't say I'm surprised. Again, I just think there's a long-standing history in this community of having a good working relationship between law enforcement and the members of the community. I think that's something that has been worked on and has always been a priority for sheriffs and for chiefs of police over time, and so it's not a surprise, but it's good to see.
And finally, Kelly, as we already mentioned, you are an outsider, but you do work so closely with local law enforcement, so perhaps you have a different perspective from the average citizen as far as what these men and women provide to the community that maybe the rest of the community is not familiar with. What would you want people to know about law enforcement that you get to know from your standpoint that perhaps they don't know?
I think a lot of times people read the paper and they look at a specific case and say, oh, why didn't the police do this? Or why didn't the police do that? But oftentimes there are laws or legal reasons that prevent police officers from doing certain things in certain situations. So I would want them to remember that, while we might want the police to go arrest in a certain situation or do certain things, they are following the laws that protect all of us and all of our constitutional rights, and they're governed by those. So I would ask the members of the community to remember that when they read the paper or read about certain cases in the paper. The other thing that may surprise members of the community about police officers is, when they go home at the end of their shift, that's not it for them. They have to follow these cases through court, and I think they would be surprised by how much time police officers spend in court.
Right, and court's not always a 9-to-5 deal.
No, or it's often their day off, or they've worked all night, and instead of going home getting in a warm bed, they spend 3 hours waiting to testify, and then they have to testify on no sleep. So it's not just all of the things that they have to do on the job. It's there's a great deal of work that goes into preparing cases and presenting cases in court.
Well, I think that's wonderful information for our viewers to hear. Kelly, thank you so much for your service to this county and the District Attorney's Office and for your time here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Although the men and women of the Hall County Sheriff's Office aid in the pursuit of justice and provide first responder law enforcement services to all residents of the county, they also conduct outreach activities to promote strong relationships with citizens. Deputy Tiffany Smith shared with us what it means to her to serve this community in her capacity as an officer of the law. Deputy Smith, we're talking a lot about the Sheriff's Office today, and I know one of the major values of Sheriff Couch and the Sheriff's Office is community service, and that's perhaps nowhere more evident than it is in the Sheriff's Office's Advance program. I know you're involved in that. Tell me a little bit about the Advance unit.
Right. Advance is avoiding drugs, violence, and negative choices early. It's a collaborative based program through efforts of the other Advance instructors, school administrators, teachers, parents, and the students and other members of the community. We try to provide an educational-based program inside the classroom to give students the information that they need to make positive choices and avoid dangers such as gangs, drugs, and violent negative choices.
It sounds like a wonderful program, and I think it's so important to get involved with students early on. Why is that such a major focus of the Advance program?
The students we deal with in the Advance program, they're forming and shaping themselves to move over to middle school. We try to give them factual-based information so that they can be better decision makers in their middle school years. And if asked to participate in a negative choice or a negative decision, that they have that information to help them.
That makes so much sense, because you really got to make those decisions before those options are even offered to you. Now, the Advance program is really just one of a number of community service initiatives that the Sheriff's Department has going on. There's the Citizens Academy, there's the Christmas Bike program, just to name a few, correct?
That's correct. There are several community-based outreach programs just within the Hall County Sheriff's Office, and that's just a few that we have.
Those are all wonderful, but I think what perhaps our viewers don't know, we're taking them behind the badge today, so sort of give them a glimpse of what they may not know, is that a lot of the deputies do sort of community service type things on their own free time. In fact, there was this wonderful story just this past Christmas about a group of deputies getting together with some men and women in our fire services unit and other community partners to provide Christmas for a needy family. And they do that type of thing all the time throughout the year, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Our deputies come in contact with parents, grandparents, children, through direct or indirect contact, and it inspires them to be an inspiration to our community to help them out in their community.
I'm sure it makes our viewers feel so good, as it does me, to know that they are doing good, all the time, whether on the clock or off the clock. Deputy Smith, what do you want our viewers to know? What else do you want them to know about members of the Hall County Sheriff's Office, law enforcement in general, especially when it comes to community service, that perhaps they are not familiar with?
We at the Hall County Sheriff's Office, we genuinely care about the community here in Hall County. We want to make a difference, and through our programs, such as the Advanced program, the Advanced Summer Camp, and all of our other community outreach programs.
Well, it sounds like you're doing just that with the students here in Hall County. Deputy Smith, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this opportunity to go behind the badge with members of the Hall County Sheriff's Office. For more information about today's program, or for more information about Hall County government in general, log on to Hall County's website, hallcounty.org. For TV18 and Hall County Connection, I'm Katie Crumley.
You're watching TV18, the government channel for Gainesville and Hall County.